In the case of cobalt and lithium in particular, the demand that's needed to supply the electric vehicle revolution far exceeds what we currently produce. So in the near term, there's definitely a demand requirement there that needs to be met by mining. But in some of the scenarios that we ran, so for instance, if we assume that the whole vehicle fleet quickly transitions to electric fleet before 2040, and where battery makers are trying to design out the cobalt and also use lithium ferrophosphate batteries or LFP batteries, we actually see a glut scenario of cobalt as early as the 2030s that continues into the 2040s. And so under certain assumptions, you got to think really carefully about what the new mining demand is going to be in the long term. And lithium is a slightly different story, though, because right now people are recycling batteries, and the whole point of recycling batteries is to get the cobalt out because that's where all the money is, or the nickel. But if we transition to these other low cobalt batteries, so LFP batteries or just nickel batteries that have less cobalt in them, the recycled bit, the lithium that's not being recycled at the moment. So it's a big unknown actually about whether or not we're going to get a lot of recovered lithium out of these low value batteries. And that's something that we need to think about carefully as well.
Jerad, really interesting implications then for pricing, especially for cobalt in the longer term. If recycling momentum does pick up, and your report touches on this, recycled battery metals might start displacing mining growth within the decade. What will be the implications for the sector then?
Well, I think if you're in the cobalt area, you need to think about getting your minds up quickly. If you're thinking about doing it in 5 or 6 years, I think you're going to be on the downward trend. And I think that's compounded by the fact that our modeling doesn't even take into account the consumer electronic mass that's coming back into the market. And even in just the Asia Pacific region, this could account for hundreds of thousands of tons of material in the next decade. And those are really high cobalt chemistries. So lithium cobalt oxide, things running your iPhone and your Apple Watch. So I think there's definitely a need to think more about how the integrated flows of materials on a global scale, accounting for that is needed. And that's where our modeling steps in to make some more sense out of this. And we want to work with companies and miners and governments to project out into the future and run different scenarios so that we can help think about this forward planning with much more rigor.